Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hello and welcome to Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton, and this is show number 82. I recently heard a comedian say that basically all anyone says in November is, "Can you believe it's November?" And that's exactly how I feel. It was funny because it was so true. But as I'm recording this, it is mid-November. We are 6 weeks from today through the end of the holiday season. And I thought it was time to talk a little bit about holiday boundaries. So let's do it. Alrighty, so if you're in the United States, Thanksgiving's like a week away. And if you're not living in the United States, if you live in Canada, you already had Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving! And if you don't live in the United States or Canada, I don't think you have Thanksgiving at all. But Christmas is still coming. Hanukkah is still coming. All sorts of holidays are still coming. And even if you personally don't celebrate these holidays, you will be awash in a sea of holidays because everyone around you is celebrating them. That means that food is a much more present temptation or just factor in your life. By food, I mean food that is especially tasty and may not be made in accordance with your specific dietary desires. So this year, every year, we come to this place where we have to think about how we want to handle this. And, when I first was keto, early in my keto life, I decided that I had to be very strict. That was what worked for me mentally. I felt like if I stepped off the path at all, it was a slippery slope that I was going to tumble down. And so I made sure that no matter what, I didn't eat high carb foods. And so that meant when I went to my sister-in-law's for holiday parties, I brought my own things. I had a discussion with her ahead of time. She was totally cool with it. When I was at a sit-down dinner, when everyone was serving themselves, I would serve up my own version of things in the kitchen, and everyone was totally cool with that. And really, honestly, nobody would have noticed unless I talked about it. And I knew, not just at holiday time, but all the time, that for me, I needed a very rigid container to keep me on my path. And then as the years passed, things changed for me. I found I could moderate my eating in a way that I used to not be able to. And a bite of something or a taste of something or trying something was not going to derail me, was not going to cause a big problem, even if I don't normally eat those kinds of foods. But I still had to look at my overall game plan for the season and the day. And there are a couple of different ways to approach this, depending on who you are and how things go for you, where you are in your cycle. By cycle, I mean like on your journey. Are you in a fat loss phase, which, more power to you over the holiday season. That can be really challenging, but it can be done, absolutely. Or you're in kind of a more of a maintenance time, or, depending on what your goals. A lot of people I will hear say, I only want to gain 5 pounds over the holiday season, which alarms me slightly because actually 5 pounds is quite a bit, unless, it's just that you're eating things that you don't normally eat. And so you're just, maybe it'll be bloating. That's not really fat gain if it's gone in a day or two or within a week. And so fingers crossed, that's what they mean. But, my goal, generally speaking, over the holidays is to maintain. And by over the holidays, I sort of mean from this Thanksgiving to Christmas period. And this year's a little different in that I'm trying to add some muscle mass. So my weight is fluctuating and is going up a very small amount. And so I'm dealing with how to navigate that. But my goal still is not to gain any significant body fat. And so, I just wanted to put this episode out there in case you hadn't yet formulated a game plan. This is your fairy godmother telling you it is time. And so that can look like a variety of ways. Now, reality. If you're not going to a bunch of parties, and these days, do people really go to a bunch of parties? I don't know. I'm a hermit, so I don't know. And really, we're talking about 2 days, maybe 3, right? Like Thanksgiving is just one day. It's not a season. It's not like a week-long celebration. And Christmas Day and potentially Christmas Eve. But usually people who do a big thing on Christmas Eve don't do a big thing on Christmas Day and vice versa. But maybe you do. So 2 to 3 days. And for those non-Americans, maybe 1 to 2. So you can just do your normal thing the rest of this time and not step off your normal eating pattern and just have those days. Plan what you're going to eat on those days. Make them work for your macros if you're counting, or if you're just decided to go off of tracking for that day. Just don't go insane, right? And it should be fine. They're little moments. Not that much harm can be done unless you decide that this holiday is an eating contest and you're going to eat as much as you possibly can fit before your intestines explode. Like if you're not doing that and you're only having like 3 meals, right? 2 to 3 meals, because Thanksgiving is not the whole day, right? It's a sit down meal. Now it tends to be a bigger meal, but load your plate up with that turkey. If nobody made a vegetable or a salad, put some, make one, have that be your contribution. Put some of that on your plate. Now you've got 2 things that are going to allow you to chew and feel good and feel full, and then fill in the gap with other kinds of things that work for you. Again, if you're the only one keto or the only one following your diet approach at the time that you're having the meal, well, you're probably going to have to make some things for yourself. And that is okay. You are allowed to do that. If your family is bitchy about it, that's their problem. Just going to say that is not a problem. It's an attitude problem that they have. And so I understand that can feel weird. And so I've heard from a few people, like, I'm going to my sister-in-law's. This is not my experience. My sister-in-law's not like this, but I'm going to my sister-in-law's. She wants to make everything. She doesn't want me to bring anything. And she's only making really carby things. There's nothing that I'm going to be able to eat. And I just want to authorize you to not go if you don't want. If you're not being respected, you're allowed to bow out. Just going to say. Now, I understand why many people wouldn't be comfortable with that. You'd maybe want to see your family. And so in that case, eat your meal before you go and then just have a nibble while you're there. She can cook up, but she can't make you eat it. And so that would be my, suggestion in that rare case. I don't think that's normally how families are, but I do know that sometimes they are. Now, there's the alternative, which is, you love the holiday foods. You want to celebrate the season. You want to experiment with recipes. You love to bake. It brings you great joy over this season to kind of eat a little bit differently than you normally do. And when I say differently than you normally do, I don't mean carb fest. I mean, more baking or something, and that baking still kind of fits within your general approach. And in this way, I would say if you're planning this where it's more of a celebration of the seasons, you still need a game plan. What kinds of things are you going to make? Are there things that you can make that like fill the spirit, make you happy, you get the flavors you want, but they don't as negatively impact your diet? Maybe if you're, a very strict carb counter, don't make things with almond flour. It ends up adding up so incredibly fast. Make more things like panna cottas, but put those flavoring in. Crustless pumpkin pie. Make eggnog or peppermint mochas using, sugar-free chocolate stuff and some peppermint extract. Figure out low impact ways that you can get what you're looking for without breaking your macro budget. There are always alternative versions of recipes you can come up with. Actually, in fact, this is not a plug, but I'm just mentioning that I have 2 holiday cookbooks that are keto, one of which is mine alone, and then one of which is half my recipes, half Nisha Berry's recipes. And so if you love the way both of us cook, which is, simple, kind of homey. I'm California homey, she's Tennessee homey, but we're both totally homey and not complicated. Those recipe books might be helpful. KimHowerton.com/cookbooks. I'll put a link in the show notes. where you can find those. But even without those cookbooks, there's a ton of recipes online. Evaluate the recipes, decide if they're a good idea. Do they fit within your parameters? Is the person counting macros the way you like macros to be counted? One caveat I always like to warn people of: most keto recipe creators, not most, some, I'll say some keto recipe creators, to most, some to most, it's a range, take a little bit of artistic license, I found, in when they calculate their macros. So if you're a macro tracker, make sure you recalculate all the macros for any recipes you make that is somebody else's, because there's some variance, I find. And if you're not keto, maybe you're more like PE, more like Ted Naiman's style, more like high protein, there are still a ton of amazing recipes you can make and stay in the holiday season. Keto Chow has a ton of holiday flavors. They've got eggnog, they've got mint chocolate, they've got snickerdoodle. I mean, some of these aren't really holiday flavors, but they work so well for the holidays. This pumpkin spice caramel one, these flavors will totally infuse your baking. I use a lot of Keto Chow in baking, and it gives it's a nice way to, I use it as like flour in a way, and it also adds a really lovely flavor. So there are things out there that aren't junky, that aren't going to blow your macro budget, no matter how you arrange your macros, that are going to give you an opportunity to taste what you want, to have those flavors. And again, I say, don't get bogged down in the details of like, well, I want to recreate this pie, and so it has to have a pie crust and it has to have this. And then by the end of it, you've like totally blown the macro budget, and that's not workable. But what are you actually trying to look to get out of this recipe? What is the sensation? What are the flavors? What's the texture? You don't have to do an exact copycat. You're just trying to get the essence of the experience you're looking for. So think that through before you make terrible cookies that look really pretty but don't taste quite right. But, you know, they checked the boxes of what you think a Christmas cookie is supposed to look like. Anyway, just my 2 cents. Taste matters, people. So getting back to the basics, because I can get away from myself here. We're entering into a season where there's going to be a lot of food around you. You need to know where you're placing your boundaries. Are you going to allow yourself a bit of flexibility, or are you not allowing yourself flexibility? If you're allowing yourself flexibility, what does that look like? Does that mean you're allowing more sort of traditional foods? Like, will you have a slice of Aunt Ida's pie, or will you bring your own, insert healthier version of dessert here? Know that ahead of time. Don't go into things blind. Have a plan. Are you sticking to just the 2 to 3 holiday meals this year, or will you do more general holiday eating? If you're going to do that general holiday eating, I would suggest being very conscious and aware of what you're putting in your mouth. Make best choices about everything. Make substitutions if they work for you, but make those substitutions the way you want to eat that fit within your appropriate macros. Don't set unrealistic goals for yourself. Plan to enjoy the season and either know you're going to maintain or you're going to lose at a moderated pace. Again, make sure your goals align with your actions and your plans, they're aligned with your goals, right? Make the plan fit the goal, then act accordingly. If the plan blows up, doesn't quite work, adjust the plan. Don't throw the plan away. Make modifications to the plan, because going into the season with no plan and just, oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks good. Oh, yeah, that looks good. Oh, yeah, that looks good. You're going to really regret it in January. You are really going to regret it in January. So don't do that. Make a plan. Stick to the plan. If the plan blows up, adjust the plan. Stay on track this year and have an incredible holiday season where you come out of it feeling proud of yourself and happy. And, only you know what are the appropriate boundaries for you. You're living your life, and, there's no keto police, there's no carb police, there's no calorie police. You do what's right for you. Enjoy your season, enjoy your holiday, enjoy your life, but make sure you're not confusing enjoying with free range to binge, because nobody truly enjoys a binge. All right, guys. If you need me, you know where to find me. I'm at Keto Life Support on Facebook. That's the Facebook group, kimhowerton.com. I hope you have a wonderful season. Check out my cookbooks if you are so inclined. I'd love you to grab a copy and enjoy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.